Dr. Duffy, I just heard about another family that had their young sons tested. They didn't have any symptoms. How did this happen? And is this common? I feel like my relationship with my young children would change if I knew they would get HD. Maybe for the better, because I'd want to do as much as possible with them, or maybe not.
So in general, we do not test kiddos for Huntington's disease for an adult onset disease, right? As I mentioned earlier, fewer than 10% of people actually choose to get tested. So we want to empower young adults with the decision to test or not to test, right? We want to empower them to live the life that is best for them without taking that right away for them based on that, meaning adult onset disease in your 40s or even later. We're just very cautious about that. And because we don't have any disease modifying medications or treatments, right? We don't have a way to intervene at this point in time. And when we do, that will be a different conversation, right? When we have something that's going to make a difference on slowing down the disease or changing the course of disease, yes, then we'll talk about let's get tested earlier so we can intervene when we think is most appropriate, when we're equipped with that knowledge and power. But until then, we want to empower our young adults with that decision making for themselves. Now, can you find a physician out there that will order a genetic test for Huntington's disease in kids? Yeah. If you search far enough and wide enough, you can find someone out there in the wild that would order the gene test and get someone tested. Is that the right thing to do? No. But you can find some that will order it. We've unpeeled or undone lots of really hard situations when that's happened, where we've had a kiddo who has refractory seizures who the physician decides maybe I'll get them tested for HD because it could be that. And then they find out that they have 40 repeats and they'll develop HD way later in life, and these seizures have absolutely nothing to do with it. And the family's in chaos, right? They're in crisis. So what do you do? What do you do? Do you tell this kid that they have a gene expanded, that they'll develop HD? How does this kid ever live a normal life? How do they get to do all the things other kids get to do? If you keep it a secret, secrets don't go well in families like this, right? How do you ever treat them like a normal kid? So what I'd say is, no, don't test your kiddos. If they're developing normally and there's not any concern for juvenile onset Huntington's disease, that's a different thing. Okay. If they trip because they tripped, and if they're struggling in school because school's hard, but if that becomes an issue, then get them evaluated and have someone do an exam and really do a deep dive into whether this could be JOHD or not. And if it's not, and they're developing normally and living their normal trajectory, let them be kids. Let them do all things kids and just love on them. Not because they might develop Huntington's disease, but because we only have a small window of time that we get to spend with our kids before we're not cool anymore and before they're out of the house. So love on them for that purpose alone, because there's going to be a time where they don't sneak into your bed and they don't want to cuddle with you. So that's how I think about it.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. And I think another thing I think that's really important is I think we search for, I don't say we symptom hunt in our kids, but like what Dr. Duffy just said, the trip, the fall, it's HD, oh my gosh, or they have, the big thing is ADHD, right? They have ADHD, they definitely have Huntington's, right? They're gonna have Huntington's. And I think a big thing, it's really hard being a parent with children at risk. I am a parent with children at risk. And I think that one thing that I was really struggling when I was seeing something in my son, and I thought for sure. And I went to this amazing person, Dr. Wheelock, and I said, Dr. Wheelock, I am really concerned. I'm scared. And Dr. Wheelock said, let me see him. And I brought him in, and Dr. Wheelock saw him and said, Katie, don't worry about anything right now. I'm not going to order this test anyways, but I'm going to put your mind at ease. We're fine. We're fine. Then all those symptoms went away when his dad died. My son was living with complete anxiety, fear, not getting sleep because we were awake often all the time. So it actually, all those symptoms I thought went away. So I was thankful that she was willing to see him and just tell me, it's okay, live your life, calm down, try your best. You have enough on your plate with your husband right now. And so that was really important. So I think if you have a good team that's willing to just say, we'll talk to you or see, that really puts your mind at ease as a
Yeah, I mean, I would say before just having them tested, take them to the center and have them evaluated by the team and then see if they see anything or hear anything concerning. What I will also say, like you mentioned, Katie, the psychosocial trauma, right, that happens in Huntington's disease and living in a household with Huntington's disease is incredibly impactful for kids and spouses and other people in the household. Like you said, you're not getting sleep, you're anxious, you're scared, your loved one is suffering in front of you, right? That is so impactful on kids. Kids are so absorbent of their environment and so intuitive and observant that they absorb that. And sometimes they need that extra support as well.
I think I would have gotten him tested if it was offered to me at that time, if I didn't have her tell me not to, like, because I was that scared.
Yeah.
And now my son is, I am never testing for HD ever, mom, ever. And I'm like, you're 18. No, I'm never going to I'm never getting married. Don't make the at 18. You're not really equipped to make this, but he's saying, mom, I'm never getting tested. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. And I'm like, okay, you're 18. We'll see how this changes. But I'm like, if I would have had him tested, he would be mad at me right now, I think. And I don't know that, but according to him, he would be mad at me. Oh, shoot. But I didn't think about that during that time.
And now you've empowered him with the decision-making abilities himself, right? To do what's right for him here and now, right? Here and now at 18, he doesn't want to test, and that might change in 5 or 10 years, but you've given him the choice.
Yeah. Oh, where are we?
Great. Karen Anderson.
Because I went on a tangent. I'm really sorry. Dr. Anderson, is it normal for me to be apathetic in very early stages of Huntington's disease? I just don't want to engage with my wife. I'm pushing her away, and I also don't want to be a burden. So that may be part of it as well. I also heard that people with HD don't know they are apathetic, and I do know these changes. May it be something else?
So we've talked a bit about apathy already. Again, apathy is something that can happen early in HD. It's trouble with motivation, trouble getting started on things, trouble engaging in things, or trouble following through on things. And it can happen early in the disease. It's not impossible if this person has apathy. But in reading this question, I really wondered, is there some depression going on? So one of the most common questions I get as a psychiatrist in HD clinic is, does someone have apathy or is it depression? To me, the dividing line is, can you enjoy something good, right? So if you have the ability to enjoy things, it might be more likely to be apathy. If you're sad, nothing seems good, you feel as though nothing can ever be good, then it might be depression. So one question is, have you thought about getting an evaluation for depression? Another one with the comment of, I don't want to be a burden. Perhaps you are starting to pull away from your wife because you don't want to be a burden and you see what's coming. And maybe you'd want to think about getting talk therapy, one-to-one talk therapy, to help you deal with some of this and understand you may have a lot of good years left with your wife, and you don't want to have this cloud hanging over your time while you're still very early in the disease and very healthy, that sort of shadows over your relationship with your wife. I think it's a complicated question. I think there could be 2 or 3 different things going on here. But I will say that when people are depressed, they often do push others in their lives away from them. So that's one of the reasons I'm concerned about depression when I read this question.
Dr. Anderson, if someone, how would you treat apathy versus depression?
Apathy is really hard to treat. Some of the things I've talked about in the earlier discussions about structuring things, giving people yes/no choices, that's really more for somebody with more advanced, severe apathy. Sometimes medications can make people apathetic. So some of the medicines that we use for sleep, Some of the antidepressants actually can make people more apathetic. A question might be, I've been on an antidepressant for many years. I've done very well. Do I still need to be on this? Some of the antipsychotic medications can make people apathetic. People are on these medicines for good reasons, but if someone is having apathy, that is one of the other things we do is review everything they're taking. Are there still good reasons to take this? Could we reduce the dose? And maybe that will help a bit with apathy, but there's not a wonderful treatment out there for apathy, unfortunately.
Lisa, are there any resources or support groups available for couples dealing with intimacy issues?
Good question. I don't believe that there are any support groups, at least HD specific support groups for people with intimacy issues, meaning like that is the subject of the support group. Now, support groups in general, we discuss any and all topics. You could bring it up. Now, of course, it can be a sensitive topic. People have varying levels of comfort having discussions like this. So it may not be super well received in every single support group, depending on where other people are, but you can certainly ask the question and then you can decide how you proceed from there. I would say if you want to talk about intimacy issues, your HD team, you can talk to us about it. Do we ask? No-ish, but it's not that we aren't willing to talk about it. We just ask you 1,000,001 questions, and sometimes we just have to stop somewhere and don't ask the question. But if there's something that you really want to bring up, please bring it up to whoever you feel most comfortable with, whether that's the social worker or the doctor or whoever it is. The other thing is you can do couples or individual therapy. HDSA has Amwell that they contract with, and they offer 8 free sessions for the Huntington's community, really. So you could certainly do that. And that's something that you could talk to an individual therapist with or without your significant other present and talk about what some of those concerns are and help problem solve that way. You just have to remember that in support groups, you're going to get lots of different opinions, and some of those opinions or some of those recommendations may work for you, and some of those recommendations may not work for you. So you just have to remember everyone is different, and the solution to whatever concerns you're having is going to be maybe different for you than it is for others. But I think asking questions like this and seeking other people's opinion of people you trust is important. And I have had these conversations with families before, and I'm happy to do it if they feel comfortable doing that in a clinic setting.